What I love about Martha Washington is that she was really courageous. A colonel described her as Spartan, that she was just very, very tenacious. During the war, she spent 50%, half of the revolution, in camp or nearby with George Washington. And that's remarkable. I think a lot of people think she just stayed home in Mount Vernon, but when it was clear that the war was going to be going on for a long period of time, she packed her bags and made a very risky trip from Mount Vernon to Cambridge, Massachusetts. Well, Abigail Adams was our working mother. When John Adams, her husband, went to the Continental Congress, he gave up his law practice, which was half of their family's income. She took over the other half, which was the farming, overseeing their farms. And she did this while caring for 4 young children. She persevered, and she learned that frugality, economy, and industry are the lessons of the day. Well, Lydia Darrah was a Quaker living in Philadelphia, and because she was a Quaker, she was considered anti-war. But she was an accidental spy, and one day the British came and asked to use her home, ordered her to hand her home over to them to make sure everyone in her household was asleep, and then they held a meeting. Well, she eavesdropped on the meeting and learned that the British were going to launch a surprise attack against George Washington's men outside of Philadelphia. The next morning she didn't tell anyone. She slipped out of town, warned Washington's men that there was a surprise attack coming, and when the British came, the Continental Army was armed and ready, and the attack failed. And so really the whole outcome of the war could have really turned on Lydia Darrah's choice to be brave and discreet at the same time. Dolly Madison really was known for her spunk and her steadfastness. She was a daughter of the American Revolution, and when she became First Lady during the War of 1812, she found herself facing a very difficult circumstance. She learned that the British were coming to burn Washington, but she promised her husband, James, that she would stay at the White House until he returned from the battlefield. So she waited all day long for President Madison to return. And what a lot of people know about that is that she saved a very valuable portrait of George Washington that day and made sure it got out of the house before the British burned the house. But she also saved the president's papers. And so she's very special because she had her eye on the big picture and on what really matters for history. And that's why I think Dolly Madison is such a beautiful example of a lady who lived loudly for liberty. Lucy and Henry Knox's story really shows that the American Revolution was a civil war. Lucy and Henry had been newlyweds. They'd been married about a year when Henry wanted to go join the Continental Army. But the problem was the British had locked down Boston, and no one was coming or going. And the other problem was that Lucy, his wife, was the daughter of a loyalist, someone very loyal to the British crown. What would she do if he left and joined the Continental Army? And so they made their decision together. She took his sword and she sewed it into the lining of her cloak, and together they slipped the bonds of Boston and entered Cambridge. She lived as a vagabond, taking refuge at different farmers' homes, and her parents never spoke to her again or responded to her letters. But Henry recognized her sacrifice and said, you know, though father, mother, sister, and brother have disowned you, your Henry will forever consider you the best boon of heaven. And their story is a love story, but also just a real demonstration of what this war was all about.